The Nilotic peoples are among the most ancient communities in East Africa, with their roots tracing deep into the Upper Nile Valley. Linguistic and cultural evidence shows that they belong to the Nilo-Saharan language family, one of the oldest in Africa, whose speakers once lived along the great floodplains of the Nile, in present-day South Sudan and Southern Sudan. For centuries, the Nile Valley provided both opportunities and challenges for these early Nilotic societies. The annual floods of the Nile enriched the soil but also forced communities to adapt to cycles of drought and plenty. In this demanding environment, the Nilotic peoples developed a way of life that revolved around cattle pastoralism. Livestock was not merely a source of food, it became the axis of their economic, social, and spiritual systems. Economically, cattle provided milk, blood, and meat. Milk was the daily staple. Blood was tapped without killing the animal, and meat was reserved for special occasions. Socially, cattle defined wealth, status, and family alliances. A man's herd measured his prestige, and bride wealth was paid in cattle. Spiritually, cattle were linked to the divine. Many Nilotic groups worshipped a supreme creator god. For example, Ngai among the Maasai, Asis among the Kalenjin, Nyasaye among the Luo, often petitioned through rituals tied to livestock fertility, rain, and protection. This deep attachment to cattle explains why Nilotic peoples were mobile by nature, constantly searching for fresh pastures and water. They became skilled warriors and herders, defending their livestock from raids while moving across vast landscapes. The Nilotes were not a single uniform people but a collection of interrelated groups that later diversified into three broad branches. 1. Plain Nilotes, pastoralists who roamed open plains and semi-arid zones, Turkana, Maasai, Samburu, Iteso. 2. River Lake Nilotes, who combined cattle keeping with fishing and small-scale farming near lakes and rivers, Luo. 3. Highland Nilotes, who adapted to the escarpments and fertile highlands of the Rift Valley, practicing mixed farming. Kalenjin subgroups, Nandi, Kipsigis, Tugan, Keyo, Marakwet, Pokot, Sabaot. Archaeological and oral traditions suggest that by the first millennium CE, pressures in their Nile Valley homeland, including overpopulation, environmental stress, and intergroup conflicts, began to push Nilotic groups southwards. This marked the beginning of their long migration into East Africa, a movement that would eventually bring them into the diverse landscapes of Kenya. But before they left the Nile Valley, the Nilotes had already forged a strong cultural identity. They were pastoralists, warriors, and clan-based societies. They had an oral tradition rich in proverbs, songs, and genealogies. They were adaptive, able to survive in river valleys, dry plains, and highland escarpments. This cultural foundation ensured that wherever they went, the Nilotic groups would remain resilient, proud, and deeply tied to their cattle-centered heritage.